So we move on to the next part of this drawing, and Biliverti very kindly supplied us with what seems to be a process in the development of a drawing. And so as we look this time, and there are a number of things that have changed and developed. It's hard to be sure what this part was in the first drawing. It seems to be the back of the sheep by the time you get down here. The hand has changed position somewhat. Instead of being down here and noting that actually from the shoulder all the way down there and from the neck, this arm is probably out of proportion. By the time it comes down here, it's developed quite an interesting change. And when you look at that and compare it with that, you can see why that change has been made. There's this rather lifeless wooden starting point has started to become quite dynamic and really quite exciting at that point. It brings us back, this part doesn't, we kind of seem to be falling out of the drawing just there, whereas this is holding together. It leads us up through that arm, through the sheep and back into this very harmonious and lively shape here. In this drawing, there are also things that have been added, as in the first attempt, things that have been added, and it's difficult to know what they are doing there. This stuff round here that seems to be all over the place, it's worth speculating about how that might develop, and does it mean anything? Is this line here going to be the beginning of this female's hip, or is this going to be in a seated position, or is that a possibility of this lady's hip and leg starting there? All these scribbles offer the artist possibilities for development, and as you look back at the earlier drawing, you can see how they have been used. This has become proportionately smaller. This has been brought up higher. This sort of squiggle here in the first drawing, which may or may not have meant anything, although I would imagine that there was a sense of not being well about the line of that shoulder as it stood, and it needed something here to strengthen the shape of the drawing and the composition of the drawing, and that stuff up there seems to be doing a similar job. So it begins to take shape and become a lot more interesting, a lot more lively. The shoulder there has certainly been changed in angle. If you look at the space between the face and the shoulder, it's quite different to that one there. And one can't help but notice the way that he has shifted the neck down somewhat. Possibly began with the neck up here, which would fit in reasonably well with his beginning sketch up there, but realised that's not working well, so he shaded that out so that the neck is becoming a light area, a highlight in the drawing, and so the whole drawing is beginning to be changed. There are just the beginnings of, there's just some shading, very, very loosely, crudely put in there. The angles, there's a small angle there to the eyelid, which indicates the new angle that the head is adopting. Notice how much more significant the relationship is between this face and the face of the animal that this person's holding, that St. Agnes is holding. It's become more meaningful. And so this drawing has been developed with lots of scribbly possibilities, and the artist has gradually selected out of those, and all the possibilities are beginning to show at this stage in the drawing. It's a great drawing, very exciting, and as you look at it, you can almost see the possibilities of some of the colour, and certainly in this area of what might happen down here. He's been very kind to us and left us with this sort of record of his progress. And so this is where you begin to see that it's not necessarily an observation of a person, but it's an exploration that Biliverti is finding an image in the work that's happening in front of him.